I'd like to welcome Miles Plaskett up to the podium. He is an attorney specializing in corporate and municipal law for Duane Morris, as well with an emphasis on renewable energy. He works on infrastructure projects and development projects in the U.S., the Virgin Islands, the Caribbean, and Latin America. He is from the Virgin Islands, has been an attorney graduating from Georgetown since in 1988. Miles Plaskett.
Good morning. True story. Jay Steinman gave me my first job here in Miami about 22 years ago. And he used to scare the crap out of me every day. He taught me to read every single word of a 85-page purchase agreement. And more than that, though, at that time when this wasn't the thing to do, he took me out on meetings with him and with his clients, and he spoke to me about the business of law and the business of business. And so I wanted to take just a few moments to publicly thank Jay, because now Jay and I are partners 22 years later, and although he tries to scare me, I don't really pay any attention to him at all. It's indeed an honor and a privilege for me to introduce the Honorable Albert Bryan Jr., the 9th elected governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, because as Jeremy mentioned, I am a native of the U.S. Virgin Islands. But I'm also personally extremely proud and somewhat embarrassed to introduce Governor Bryan. Proud because I've known the governor for many years. I consider him a friend. We attended the same high school, although I went there quite a few years before he did. We worked together when he was a Commissioner of Labor in the Virgin Islands and the chairman of the Economic Development Commission. I remember when he told me that he was going to run for governor some 3 or 4 years before he actually did, and successfully did so on his first try. I'm proud because Governor Bryan exemplifies what we were both taught at that very small school on that very, very small island where we grew up. That service and commitment to our community is key. We were taught the importance of family, of ethics and morality, of hard work, determination, and grit. And most importantly, probably, that to whom much is given, even more is expected. Governor Bryan is a model of all of those qualities. Having left the Virgin Islands to earn his degree in economics and then returning to serve the community that we both love. I'm a bit embarrassed because while I may try my best here in Miami to do what I can for the Virgin Islands, I'm not there in the trenches with the governor and with his General Counsel David Bornn, who's here, or Kamal Latham, his CEO of the Economic Development Authority, or Peter Chapman, his director of the Research and Technology Park, or even my cousin Stacey Plaskett, who's the congresswoman from the Virgin Islands. I chose to be here and to do what I can by encouraging people, encouraging investors, encouraging businesses to move to the Virgin Islands and to help. The governor is 11 months into his administration, and as David described it, it's like drinking from a fire hose. He and the Virgin Islands are facing economic challenges head on. Everything from the rebuilding of the territory after the 2 huge storms, hurricanes of 2017, to setting the course for sustained economic growth for the future. Governor Bryan is tirelessly working and advocating for the Virgin Islands. Please help me in welcoming Governor Albert Bryan, the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Good morning. Oh, I got to raise the energy in the room. Good morning. You know, I really would like to thank Jay Miles, my countryman, so to speak, and NAI for inviting us here today. You know, for the last 30 years, believe it or not, I've been plotting, positioning, and planning to be the governor of the Virgin Islands. And in 1 year, 9 candidates, never ran for anything before, 3 elections, I won. And I say that to you because I want you to see the determination, the planning, and the positioning that you will get if you invest in the Virgin Islands. See, I didn't run to be the governor of the Virgin Islands because I don't particularly like politicians. I ran because I saw it as a time where our economy, our people, our entire territory needs to evolve into a leadership position where we take care and take advantage of economic opportunities that come in these small windows in time. And this is one of those small windows. You see, we have been the longest opportunity zone in the history of the United States. See, long before this came along, you could come to the Virgin Islands, invest $100,000, and get 100% tax exemption on your state taxes. And then in addition to that, we could also give you a 90% tax exemption on your federal income tax. We've been doing this for a long time. So investing in the Virgin Islands is not only good for the opportunity zone, it's just good business. And during that time, we've had refineries, distilleries, watch companies, we've had financial firms, we've had brokerages all come to the Virgin Islands and take advantage of these opportunities. Well, today I happen to be lucky enough to be on the verge of a new economic renaissance in the Virgin Islands. And just this week, we have a revenue estimating conference to look forward to what we're doing. So for every year for the next 10 years, guaranteed, we will invest 10%, 7.5% to 10% of our GDP in government projects. Every single year, guaranteed. That's $400 million in new development in dredging our ports, expanding our airport capacities. We're putting in new marinas. We have new schools, new hospitals. We're doing new hotels. We're $800 million in new public housing projects, $600 million in complete road repairs. We have sports tourism. As a matter of fact, I have to run back today because we have DC United, the national soccer team in the U.S. Virgin Islands, playing on our world-class pitch. We're building a world-class stadium for baseball and another one at the university for basketball and conferences. And that's just the government development. So I came here to tell you today that we are open for business. And the reason why I brought my team, my legal counsel, my economic development authority chief, as well as my research and technology chief, is to show you the importance of your dollar and your investment in the Virgin Islands. I don't want to talk a lot this morning because I really want to let them get to the grit of what it means to be an investor in the Virgin Islands and how we are making you a partner. And I also made this statement below about being the politician because since I've been in office, we've been doing everything to make our business portfolio easy to understand, simple, and easy to put in effect. Whether that's cutting out the red tape and the bureaucracy around our CZM permitting process, or looking at our tax increment financing and seeing how we could do that easier, or adding an 8%, 8.5%, 7.5% to our hotel tax that the hotels can use in order to fund their recovery. When I talk about the private sector projects, we have a $250 million investment going in by the Marriott, of which we're putting up $30 million in order to make it happen. So this is a government territory focused on development. And while Miles might say that he's not there on the front lines helping us, we really need people in the trenches right here in Miami and in other places, bringing your investment dollars to the Virgin Islands. So thank you for having me, and I'm sure the panel, you can ask them a lot more questions about what's going on in the Virgin Islands. Thank you so much.
All right, perfect. So we have 20 minutes or whenever the governor says he's finished. So that's a legal thing, or is kind of the operative phrase there. Okay, so how many people in the audience think they're kind of expert on the U.S. Virgin Islands? Okay, a couple of facts. So this is stuff we're all U.S. citizens here, I think, and so this is stuff we should know, by the way. So the U.S. Virgin Islands have been part of the United States. They're part of the United States since 1917. Population is approximately 107,000 people. The islands of St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John make up the large majority of the U.S. Virgin Islands, but there are other islands involved as well. The capital, I'm going to butcher the name, Charlotte? Amalia. Charlotte Amalia. It is east of Puerto Rico. East of Puerto Rico. Of course, the people from the north wouldn't understand that. You understand that down here. All right? Tourism, not surprisingly, is one of the main economic drivers of the economy, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. And they get around 2.5 million visitors annually to the islands. And most importantly, or least importantly, there is no daylight savings times there to screw up your internal clock. They have been smart about that and have not used daylight savings time. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about, why don't we go down and give us a little bit of who are you and how do you fit into the government filament and or the business community. So why don't we start down here?
Well, good morning.
I think you're on.
Yeah. Good morning, and thanks, Brad. I am David Bornn. I am the Chief Legal Counsel to the Governor, and he has tasked me with facilitating the Economic Development Program. I have been in private practice all my life until the good gentleman came to my office and said, I need you. And so I have been in this for the same 11 months of the trench. I want to just give some general overview points and then turn it over to the others for the specifics.
Just hold that thought. I want to quick down the line, then we'll come right back to you, okay?
Good.
So, second, who are you and how do you fit into the whole picture?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Kamal Latham. I'm CEO of the Economic Development Authority in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We promote the economic growth of the territory. We promote job creation and wealth generation primarily by administering the tax incentives. The governor had touched on them. If you domicile a company in the territory, you can get a 90% reduction on your federal corporate income taxes on essentially your worldwide income for 30 to 50 years if you qualify. And that is one of the principal things that we use to promote the growth of the economy. By way of background, I did economic development here in Florida, in North Central Florida. I was a U.S. diplomat and was an investment banker on Wall Street for a number of years. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about how we can help facilitate your investment in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Thanks, Kamal.
Again, good morning. My name is Peter Chapman, and I'm the Executive Director and CEO of what is called the Research and Technology Park Corporation. At the end of the day, the RT Park, as we call it, is an economic development organization that is really a public-private partnership in terms of our structure. And we were established 13 years ago to facilitate the creation and growth of a tech sector in the Virgin Islands. And what is not known to many, but with each passing month of getting a number of wins, we are making this less of a secret to the United States and to folks in other markets, but we have a burgeoning tech sector. And so when we talk about our tech sector, we're talking primarily about IT and telecommunications, but in the last year, we have also made significant strides in bringing more financial technology companies to the territory, healthcare and life sciences companies, so medical informatics, medical device technology firms. We have, as of this past year, the only comprehensive business accelerator program, tech accelerator program in the territory. That is yet another magnet for growth of our tech cluster. So we're extremely glad to be here. We have a sector focus, not only in terms of how we go about building our tech cluster, but how we go about harnessing opportunities within our opportunity zones. And so those 5 areas include tourism and hospitality. You'll hear more about that. Sustainable development is another critical focus of our QOZ program. Market rate housing, technology and knowledge-based, of course, and historic preservation. So again, it's great being here with you this morning, and thank you, Brad, for this.
All right, Peter, you drew a little bit outside the lines. This was, who are you? But that's okay, it's all
I'm
good.
sorry.
So we've got the technology and incubation, we have the big guy, the governor, we've got kind of economic development, and we have the chief legal person. So back to the chief legal person, David. What did you want to say? So what's going on legally in the islands, and how are you involved in that?
Okay, so I'm going to do the broad view and not make any assumptions. First of all, the U.S. Virgin Islands are one of 2 U.S. zones in the Caribbean, the other being Puerto Rico. As a U.S. territory, we do not, for an investor, we do not have any issues of doing business in a foreign country. We use U.S. currency, banking, courts, postal systems, laws that are familiar to us as a country. There are no reporting requirements such as FATCA or any of the other foreign reporting requirements. And there's also the exemption from the Jones Act, so that shipments can be made in foreign bottoms and at a cheaper cost. We use the Internal Revenue Code as our tax code under what we call the mirror code theory, that where the code references US, you substitute VI. And in this regard, the QOZ program and other federal investment programs like the New Markets Tax Credit and the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit all apply in the Virgin Islands. The distinction of the US VI tax incentive program is that unlike other jurisdictions, our incentive program has been well tested. It was started in the 1960s, and it has been tested by the IRS and in the courts and survived. The investing in our local scene is sensitive and sensible, because you can not only get, in this focus case, the QOZ program, but you can also stack on top of the QOZ the local incentive programs so that you get the additional benefit beyond simply the capital gains treatment. And the programs we're going to be describing here will also be available in booklet form and online, so that you can get the nitty-gritty detail of the types of projects that we have available for you.
So, Governor, you have 14 opportunity zones throughout the islands. Do you feel like that's a good enough tool? Did you want more, or is that sufficient?
Well, we have, like as I mentioned earlier, we have so many different tools in the Virgin Islands, and we keep adding to them. We're just waiting for a piece of legislation now that's going to expand what you can do under the tax increment financing. I mentioned our Hotel Development Act that allows you to add on to the hotel development tax up to 7.5% and use that to finance. On new hotel development, you can add on up to 20, you could take the 20% and actually use that of the hotel tax and use that to finance your project as well. So, I mean, Kamal is familiar, as well as Peter, with the host of tax incentive programs we have to do that. And the beautiful thing about it is, I like to say in the Virgin Islands, there's only 3 separations between you and anybody in the world, 3 degrees of separation. Me being the governor, just like I'm here, you have access to me in the island. So if you have a problem or a specific tax code thing that you need to get changed or enacted, we're available for you and open to that discussion.
Perfect. So Kamal, Peter, either or both, what type of development are you looking to see put into play in the islands?
A key area is hotel and resort development. That's a top priority sector for us. Tourism is a big driver of our economy. We are diversifying our economy, but for right now, that is a big driver. And so we're looking for new hotel development. We have not had a new hotel in 30 some odd years to be built in the territory. So that's a big focus for us. Let me give you an example of a development project that's on the books that we expect to come out the ground. We have Water Island, that's one of the Virgin Islands as well. All of Water Island is an opportunity zone. And there is a project there, a super high-end luxury hotel and resort with a high-end villa, condo residence, plus a marina, a $420 million project. They will be using Opportunity Zone funds for the equity. They will be using our hotel development program, where they can use, as the governor had mentioned, up to 20% off of the guest bill to finance the construction of a new hotel, and also tax incremental financing legislation. And the revenues from those two areas would be used to provide the backing for bonds that will be sold in the debt capital market. So that's where the debt would come from for the project. And they are intending to apply for our tax incentives, where 90% reduction on the federal corporate income tax on the revenue that will be generated from the hotel, they will be able to retain. So for that one type of project, they will be using the qualified opportunity zones, using our tax incentive program, using the Hotel Development Act, and tax incremental financing. Those 4 sets of incentives to be able to provide 65% of the debt and 35% for the equity to fund that $420 million project. So that's just one case example of what we are looking at, and we're expecting to have more of those type of projects, and that's a dialogue that we would want to have with all of you. And one thing just to highlight, one of the things that is a strategic advantage of the U.S. Virgin Islands is that we have one layer of government, just the territorial layer. 15 members of the Senate, the elected governor, and the elected lieutenant governor. We don't have 75 different cities with 75 different mayors and 75 city councils, so that you have all of that extra involvement. We don't have that. One layer of government. That is something that we wanted to highlight for you.
Did you say one layer of government?
One layer of government.
That's not always a good thing. You know, I'm the governor, but I get credit for nothing and blame for everything.
It's like the school boards. They're the same thing. So I'm sure your cell phone gets passed out.
Yeah.
So Peter, let's talk a little bit about the tech center and what's going on there. What are you looking for? What would be like the perfect project, and kind of what's going on now?
Sure. So again, I didn't mean to draw too far out the lines during my overview, but I'm a radical New Yorker with Caribbean roots, and so we're a little bit hard to manage.
It's like the East Coast guy,
Exactly. So the Research and Technology Park, and this is a very important characteristic of who we are and how we do our work. So our name implies that we are this sort of geeky academic sort of enterprise, and while that may be a dimension of who we are, at the end of the day, we're about facilitating investments in the territory, job-creating investments that help to expand or grow the cluster of knowledge-based enterprises. And so to that extent, we do a few different things. So we administer a tax incentive program that largely mirrors the program that Kamal and his agency administer, but we focus on technology and knowledge-based enterprises. And we are not limited to providing financing and funding for operating businesses. We also facilitate brick and mortar projects that will, as we say, improve and strengthen the entrepreneurial and overall economic development ecosystem. So let me give you, going back to Brad's question, let me give you some illustrative examples of some projects that we are directly involved with that have nothing to do with technology. So we have, through a fund, a QOZ fund that we're working with in Washington, D.C., we are really working with them to get a package, a diverse package of investments that include market rate housing and offices for tech companies and other, professional services in the territory. This project will be on the island of St. Croix, directly adjacent to the Research and Technology Park headquarters. It is a relatively bite-sized but important project, so that particular component of the project is going to be somewhere between 13 and 15 million. Again, market rate housing, which will fill a significant void that we have in the territory right now. The office component will expand the inventory, as I said, for tech and knowledge-based firms and professional services. And then the other components of that project, interestingly for a research and technology park to be facilitating, are hotels. So there will be one luxury hotel on the island of St. Thomas, which is really the hub of our burgeoning tourism industry, as Kamal indicated. There will be a second hotel as part of this package on the island of St. Croix. Both of these hotels will be teaching hotels that have a programmatic link with the University of the Virgin Islands, which has a hospitality program. And so those are just some illustrative examples to start with.
I just want to add to that, the reason why we have a research and technology park is St. Croix is where the fiber optic cables that connect the U.S. mainland and South America land. So we have access really to one of the greatest supply of bandwidth in the United States. So that's another reason why we have really tried to do that. We have a company that we spent $120 million creating a fiber network, which the government owns as well in the islands, in hopes of really creating that Silicon Island effect. So we've been working on it for a while, and we're happy to have Peter making that lead right now, because we're doing tremendous things.
So, Governor, on that point, though, to follow up, public-private partnerships, something that you're interested in and worthy relative to maybe combining the OZ with the P3?
Yeah, absolutely. We are always looking for public-private partnerships. We are the largest employer. We are the biggest landlord. We own hospitals, the power plant. We own the waste management agency. So you see why I'm always getting blamed for everything. We're looking for partners to help us with those situations. We have challenges along energy. I saw some solar in here. We want to be able to convert our power situation to one that is majority renewable over the next 10, 15 years. So those are initiatives that we're very interested in. So we want to do business with the people whose business is to make profit.
So, David, let's wrap up with, let's talk permits. So before I go there, and approval process, before I go there, you heard about this large hotel project that's being built, and there's condos involved in that, and it's in the opportunity zone. So not only can the developer, the sponsor, be entitled to the benefits, deferral, reduction, freedom we talked about for the real estate, any of the businesses that go into that resort that are servicing the customers will also be entitled, but also the condominium buyers. If they buy with capital gains, they are buying real estate in a zone. So if you had customers that you work with in Florida that happen to be interested in a condominium in the islands, the ability to defer, reduce, and have freedom when they sell that condo before 2047. So if they bought now, that's a pretty long time to have a condo. If they sell it, the appreciated value is federally tax-free. Okay, so just think.
Just to add to that, Brad,
Sure.
and in the housing crisis in 2008-9, we had zero fallout. Virgin Islands real estate doesn't ever dip. It slows, but it never dips. It's always appreciating, so it's a really good place to park your money.
Good stuff. All right, so let's talk permit process real quick. So what does the permit process look like, and how long does it take to get stuff permitted?
Well, first of all, I can't guarantee
Of course, no guarantee.
any of the things that I'm going to say, but in
rules.
general terms, we have a system of permitting across multiple departments depending upon what the project needs. With Governor Bryan coming in, we have revamped that permitting system across the board so that everyone, all departments, know that permitting related to development is to be fast-tracked as much as possible. Now, granted, there are instances where we have problems because there is some hiccup in the process, in the application contents. But the general mandate from the governor has been that we move things as quickly as possible. Estimated time frame, I think, giving myself a little breath, would be a 6 to 9 month period, but it can go much faster than that.
I can sense the governor saying under 6 months. 6 to 9 months, you heard. Okay. That may be revisited after today.
The beauty is, if it starts to slow, you have my cell phone number, and I have a whip.
6 to 9 months, not
and
bad.
he will pass the call to me.
Look, that's 6 to 9 months is, that's not bad. I mean, in the sense that, you got a big project, it takes a bit of time. And contractors, construction move pretty quickly on the islands?
Well, now we have a whole host of people there because we're doing the hurricane recovery. We also have our refinery that's reopening. We had the third largest refinery in the Western Hemisphere. We got 4,000 people working there now, and they're going to churn out about 300,000 barrels a day, starting probably next early second quarter, I imagine.
Awesome. All right, so quickly, lightning round down, final thoughts. Why don't we start at the end? Peter, thoughts? How can these folks get involved with the islands? What would you like to see?
So you are talking this morning to many of the same folks who you would be working with during the course of negotiating any project that you undertake in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We are extremely creative, open, flexible, and available. And so we look forward to having further dialogue with you to drill down into some of the specific opportunities that we've outlined here today.
Excellent. Governor, final thoughts?
3 degrees of separation, like Miles said. We all went to high school together, so we could work it out very quickly for you. We are excited about seeing you in the islands real soon.
Awesome. Kamal?
We are America's business paradise, but we're also America's best-kept business secret. Given the opportunities that we have and the incentives, we can really put your capital to work. So not only can we be a wealth preservation strategy, but also a revenue generation strategy for your businesses. So we welcome you to come and visit with us. We are here, and we are delighted to have discussions with you.
Fabulous. Dave?
I point you to the materials for the program that will have in it a link that you can get directly to the source of this descriptive information and a sample pipeline of projects. But I also refer you to Duane Morris because they have been working with us to get the word out and have been very successful in bringing investors compatible to the USVI.
Fabulous. Okay, I'll wrap it up real quick. So the takeaways, big ones. The islands are America's best kept business secret. They have a mirror code to our tax code. Why? Because they are part of the United States, friends. The dollar, the court system are all the same. Benefits down in the islands are stackable on top of the Opportunity Zone benefit. They've got a TIF, tax incremental financing, a hotel tax that also can serve as form of equity, and a real estate tax abatement that lasts up to 20 years, I think I was told.
50.
They have one layer of government, and you're seeing it right here. So if you need something, they are here to assist. Real estate slows but does not go down, and 3 degrees of separation. Thank you very much, panel. Really informative.